Aaron Tuttle here for Ferguson Roof Systems. For 43 years, Ferguson Roof Systems has been protecting Oklahoma's homes and businesses with quality roofing services. Their goal was to be the most honest and dependable roofing company in the state, all while providing free services such as lifetime labor warranty and annual inspections. Well, mission accomplished with thousands of client testimonials, an A+ Better Business Bureau rating, and a 5-star rating on Google. Look, the weather gives you enough to worry about, so why worry about who to trust with your roof? Call Ferguson Roof Systems today or find out more at fergusonroofsystems.com.
Hey there, Meteorologist Aaron Tuttle here with you. I forgot to press the YouTube button when I went on with all the other ones, and that when I wanted to go back to YouTube, it just created a chaos event. So software did not like that, so I had to just kill it all over and start it over again. So if you're wondering why there was 2 back-to-back live streams, well, now you know. So the other ones have been canceled or closed, so hopefully there's nobody left lost in cyberspace on that side. So welcome, this is AT's Weather. We're going to talk about the winter storm that apparently moved through already. That was interesting. And then so we'll recap that one, and then we'll talk about the one coming in for Monday and see if it's bigger and better than the one that we had tonight. There were some big flakes out there. I don't know about you, but I got really excited there for a minute. I thought maybe snowman was coming my way for tonight. But yeah, that's over with for right now. We'll get to the radar here in a second. Meanwhile, get on Facebook as usual. If you are not getting notified when I do go live, you can hit this little update link in the comments section, and you can sign up to get direct notifications from me. Many of you do that, and that is very helpful. It's always a good workaround for the algorithms, right? Don't let those AI tell you what to do. Don't let those new robots tell you what you want. Okay, so out there currently, we've got chilly 32 degrees. So we are now on our way down here in my backyard. It does say no in the rain, but because I wasn't measuring rainfall, I was measuring some snow. So of course you'd have to melt that, but it'll get a little bit of I don't know, official, trace or something at the airport as far as the snow goes when you melt that stuff out. It doesn't have to cover some of the ground, but you can see out there currently, well, at least earlier I had a few clouds drifting through, and those have already cleared out. So now I've got clear skies here, and that's what's going to allow those temperatures to really fall. So again, thanks for joining me out there on YouTube land, also on Twitter, Rumble, and Facebook. So we guys got you into in effect here. And let's see here. Let's go on to, let's see, I want to show you let's do the radar first. All right, yeah, let's do that one. All right, so here's a look at just the last couple of hours. And the purple is where the radar transitions from the green, which is rain, to this colored scale, which indicates snow. So this is where the snow fell, and quite heavy across central Oklahoma. It just started on the west side of the metro to the east side, all the way from Pottawatomie County, Seminole County, Prague, and then right about Okfuskee and Okemah. There's still some flakes coming down, but it's wrapping up. It's having a hard time continuing to transfer over. But you'll probably still get some snowflakes mixed in this east here, and some of this rain, especially along I-40 or so, moving eastbound. As I said, it was just enough to kind of coat the grass a little bit and some elevated surfaces. So that was a nice little surprise when I looked at my camera and said, what is that? Is that snow? I've been busy all week, so family's in town. Jody's daughter's in town, so I have not been paying a whole lot of attention to the weather. So I've got to tell you, this took me by surprise because I was not even looking at it. And I just looked out the window and, oh, I probably ought to do something about that. It's like, oh, here we are. So, but that was a nice little surprise. The reason for that, earlier today, you saw some virga, which is kind of like precipitation that evaporates before hitting the ground. That's because in this layer of the atmosphere, which is right around, let's just call it 10 to 20,000 feet, is pretty saturated. So that's where all the cloud cover was. And below that level, in this region here, this is the red, this is the green. You see how far apart that is? It's a lot of dry air. And so that's why we call it virga. In other words, precipitation gets going here, it falls downward. So do a little arrow here. It falls downward from the atmosphere, of course, from top to bottom, and it starts to evaporate in this layer. Well, over time, you can eventually saturate this layer where these lines, the red and the green, which indicates temperature and dew point, they come together. Now, when that happens, we call it saturation, and this is the wet bulb temperature line, this little blue line here, which falls below the 0. This is a vertical profile of the atmosphere. So if you look here at this scale, 0 runs diagonal this way. So if you notice then, once you get these lines together in the blue, that is all west of that diagonal line, which means you get snow that comes down to the surface. That's a vertical chart of the atmosphere from a balloon sounding launched in Norman, Oklahoma from the National Weather Service, which we can look for winter precipitation types. If it's all west of this line, it's all snow. But in our neck of the woods, a lot of times these little red lines here, temperatures nudge east of this line. That's when we start to get the messy forecast. So we have to throw in either sleet or freezing rain or a combination of rain and snow. It can get really complicated really fast. But tonight was an easy call because there's so much dry air in place. It just kind of evaporated cooling, took shape, and it gave us a little burst of snow. So pretty cool stuff out there. All right, so let's get on with it. Let's talk about the current situation of the atmosphere. The yellow line is the freezing line, which is now progressing along the I-35 corridor in the Oklahoma City metro area, back out west of 40. So you can see into the teens already to the panhandle. Still several degrees to drop here across southern and eastern Oklahoma. It will be hard freeze tonight across many areas. Now the winds are starting to come down as well. See these winds around 3 to 4 to 6 miles per hour? That's one of the factors you need to get those temperatures to really bottom out. Still gusting into the 20s though in parts of eastern and southeastern Oklahoma. Okay, so let's look at the NAM model. This is a hot off the press. This model just came in. Now, what you will focus on, the brighter the color equals the more lift in the atmosphere. This is the upper level of the atmosphere. It's a jet stream. And I always plot this for you so you can see the river of air. And where we see these brighter colors, it means it's really squeezing out that moisture to produce some clouds. And if enough is there to get precipitation, could be rain, storm, severe weather, snow, whatever. Well, in this particular case, this came in quite a bit stronger than early models had indicated. Hence, this really bright color of red to purple right here, right over central Oklahoma, right at the 7 o'clock hour. And it continues here across the east as it moves into eastern Oklahoma. So it's going to continue to kind of dump out a little bit of that snow as some of that cooling process takes shape in the atmosphere. So pretty neat little deal. You got to watch these disturbances. They can really surprise you sometimes during the winter to produce a little quick burst of snow that otherwise really wasn't expected. But that's going to move on off to the east. Here comes a secondary one coming in, bowling ball across the Four Corners area by Sunday night into Monday. Here's midday Monday. Here is, let's see, we'll stop right here Monday afternoon. So right around 4 o'clock. Now this is the center of the upper level low, right here over Oklahoma. Now, so if you want a storm system, and if it's cold enough, if you want precipitation in the form of snow, this is looking A-okay. So we're going to get down to the details here on this to figure out who, where, when, how, all that much. But right now, I'll show you that this is the wind field for tonight. These little barbs that you see here with a teeny tiny little dot on it right there, a little bitty tick. It means winds here only 5 knots, all right, or less. So you don't have a lot of wind. So this is where all the winds are stronger, even color-coded here for you, to the 10 to 20 mile per hour range. But as we go into the morning hours, I'll just stop it to about 6 a.m. You notice all these winds kind of have a light northwesterly direction. So again, we're talking less than pretty much 5 miles per hour. That's basically a very light wind, which is one of the ingredients that you need for really cold temperatures. And of course, the skies are clearing out behind this upper level storm system. What also happens is that drier air will move in. So dew point values drop off into the mid-20s here in central Oklahoma, mid-teens across the northern parts of the state. So this is why you can see you get a really hard freeze. Clear skies, light winds, and low dew point values. And temperatures often fall close to the dew point. They don't always sometimes hit it, but they'll fall pretty close. That means a lot of places here, especially in the low-lying areas, are going to be into the teens by tomorrow morning. Now, the models will try to kind of guess where some of those will happen. The color codes, we see these little white shadings on the map. That's where you see a lot of teens sneaking in. Now, of course, the panhandle are already in the teens, so models are favoring like 10 degrees up here, probably near Hooker or Slap Out or something out west from there. But otherwise, you can see the blue, which is the freezing point, is pretty much encompasses the entire state. Exception maybe way down here in southeast Oklahoma if they're lucky. So again, good hard freeze tonight with teens and 20s. Okay, so here's a look at the snow that moved through in the model data. We went from 7 to 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock to 10, moving in out of eastern Oklahoma before midnight, and is gone. And nothing is in its wake, so things are quiet through the weekend. So let's talk about what's going to happen when the weekend ends and the fun stuff begins. Now I'm going to go back to this morning. So the morning we have all the model data that comes in, just for a comparison of where the upper level low is. That's what we're going to kind of focus on. So let's see here. What do we want to do? All right, let's do this. So we have these little contours that close off In the middle of that is the center of the upper level low. So this is the Canadian model, for example. This is the global version of it. If we look at its sister run, which is the high resolution version, it actually has it split. It's got a little closed off low here and one here. It's messy. It hasn't decided how it wants to handle this system yet from the morning run. Let's see. We look at the American model. Same kind of idea, had a little tough time closing it off, but down here across the southeastern Texas Panhandle, this is all for Monday afternoon, the position of the upper low. And this is the Canadian model, which has a kind of a southwest Oklahoma, so a closed off area here. The NAM had it already here across east central Oklahoma, and the UK Met, which actually does fairly well for tracks of upper lows in the wintertime, kind of has it centered, let's just call it northwest Oklahoma. All right, so that was the morning run. Let's see what happens in the midday run, and we'll see if any changes took shape. And some of these models will not come in the midday. That's why I want to start with the morning. So the European, it's basically still the same. Has the upper level low right here over the central Oklahoma region, just on the south side, pretty much over Norman to Blanchard, kind of in that zone. So if you want some good snows, it's a good track for you. The American model kind of went north. And not quite a closed low appearance, kind of elongated. So elongated lobe of vorticity of upper level energy in the atmosphere. Different look to it completely. The NAM was an outlier. It was way back here in the southwest. It all of a sudden just, I don't know what it was thinking. It jumped way back into southeastern Texas Panhandle. That was a bad run. We're going to throw that one out. And the Canadian model at midday versus the morning finally got its act together, kind of dropped the low up here, started strengthening the one down here, but still down across the Red River Valley. So that was the big change in the Canadian. We'll see if it starts to shift a little bit more to the north, which I believe it will. Now, when it comes to the evening run, the only model I believe available is going to be the NAM. So let's see what happened with its latest run for the evening. All right, so we're going to back it out to this time frame here. So about 4 o'clock in the afternoon or so. Okay, so the NAM has the center of it right over central Oklahoma, pretty much the north side of Canadian County, basically Kingfisher. All right, it's the center of this closed circle. And again, why is this important? Because the track of the upper low is where you get the snow. All right, the Canadian model, look what it did. I just now saw this. I haven't seen this yet. You know what it did? It moved it north, and it pretty much right where the NAM was, which is right about here. You can see a nice vorticity lobe here, but no closed contour. Interesting. But it has quite a bit of energy associated with it. So the Canadian model is still struggling. The NAM seems to think it's on its idea here of where it's going to be. All right, so if we time this stuff out, we'll look at the layer below that in the atmosphere to see when really the cranking of the precipitation starts. So this is Sunday night and a Monday morning. See all the bright colors? That just means we're going to have cloud cover. Light precipitation is going to try to start developing, probably some rainfall early on, light rain. And if you look out here, you get the darker reds and some purples. That's around the morning hours on Monday. Here's midday from central Oklahoma. So that means I-35 corridor points down south and east. There's your indicators of some heavy precipitation forming. And then as we head into the afternoon hours, little wraparound stuff here for the mid-afternoon period. Otherwise, heavier stuff out east. So that's where our precipitation will reside. And then by the evening, it's gone. Most of the lift with this is pretty much exiting the state. And so by Monday night, it's already out of our region. So that's kind of how the timing looks. Now, a lot of times you'll talk about the dry slide, right? Is there going to be dry slide of air in the mid-levels that shuts the precipitation off? So for example, tonight's deal, just to give you an idea. All right, so we had a little bit of a little mini upper low kind of in this vicinity here. Now the dry slide is this color of brown you see that kind of rotates in underneath it there and on the back side here. So a lot of times what happens is this dry slide will come up in here around the front of the upper level low like this and spread out, and then it just means boom, kills off the snow. So you don't want a big dry slide coming in. Now tonight we didn't really have that, as you noticed. We had that nice little dark blue air, which means a lot of saturation, 100% humidity. Now you can see the drier air wrapping in here in the back end, so that means southeast Oklahoma, they got the dry slide, but we didn't get it here in central or eastern Oklahoma. All right, so that moves on out. But you can see when you have upper level lows, you have to watch for that. So here's the next run. So here's we head into Monday. All right, so here we go. What do we have here? Here's a dry slide that comes in, tries to wrap here in the southwest Oklahoma. You see that? But by lunchtime here, a lot of the heavy precipitation is already ongoing here in central Oklahoma. Now, as we head into the mid-afternoon period, there was a little bit of a dry slide that wrapped around, but because the upper level low, according to this model, is concentric and tightly wound up, we get a trapped area of moisture that moves right over central Oklahoma. Then that moves over to Tulsa and the rest of eastern Oklahoma. So the dry side doesn't really become a factor for us. So this is early, this is early in the data. That can change, but for right now, that looks like how that'll play out. Now, when we do look at the timing of the precipitation, like I mentioned, probably some light showers or something trying to get going in the morning. So here's 9 o'clock in the morning. There's the model hinting at some sprinkles or light showers here across the I-35 corridor. And then back out here in northwest Oklahoma into the Panhandle, already snowing, so much heavier snow coming at that point in time. There's noon, heavy snow here across central northern Oklahoma. And as we head into the mid-afternoon hours, there's that heavy snow pretty much running right along east and west of I-40 across northern parts of the state. And then by evening hours, it wraps up here with some light flurries here in central Oklahoma and across the northeast. Still some flurries right about 9 o'clock, and by midnight, pretty much it's all said and done. Okay, so one of the things here that we'll have to watch out for, you said, well, how do you know, it's not going to be, sleet or freezing rain or anything like that? And insert, joke here, right? Okay, so remember we started this broadcast looking at a balloon sounding in the atmosphere to find out what those temperature profiles look like. Same idea, all right? So here we are. We're pretty saturated all the way up from not too far off the surface to the mid-upper levels of the atmosphere. So that's good news, all right? A little drier here at the low level. All right, that's a temperature of 23-degree dew point and a 36-degree Fahrenheit surface temperature. So these two will have to meet at the wet bulb temperature, which is this little blue line, and that's right at 0 degrees. That's 0 degrees Celsius, by the way. So that's the freezing point, so 32 degrees. All right, so as we go through time and this atmosphere saturates, you will see here on the next panel, these numbers get closer together. These numbers here at the bottom are getting closer together. So we head into the lunchtime panel to the afternoon. They're all completely saturated. So the whole atmosphere is saturated, 32 degrees or colder, which means, again, the profile supports the dirty four-letter word, S-N-O-W. So not sleet, not freezing rain or anything. So that's good news. Okay, let's see. I looked at all the ensembles. They all pretty much had snow, at some level, whether it be flurries or something measurable. So it's not like it's a question of what's going to happen. The question now is just kind of how much. All right, so here's a look at the European run. When we take a look at its ensemble members, all 50 of them, some of these are quite substantial. See the blue lines? That means 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 7 inches of snow. All right, those are the outliers as far as, the heavier amounts. Most of them are right around a dusting of snow to about an inch or so. It kind of averages all out to about 2 inches. So there you go, 2 inches here in Oklahoma City according to the European, when you average out those members. When you look at the GFS, the American model, same idea. You got some outliers here, 4, 6, 8, 5, 4, 3, but when you factor them all in, again, about 2 inches is a good average. Now the experimental American model that I looked at the last time we did live did show a big heavy round of precipitation, but if you recall, do you recall? It was down here, remember that? And I told you when I looked at some of the other model data in the upper track that it was probably going to shift to the north, and it did. Now, the problem is it shifted way north. Now, here's Oklahoma City right here, all right, right in the middle of this little X. So you can see what it did. It put us around the southern fringe. First, we're on the northern fringe. Now we're on the southern fringe of the heavier stuff back up to the north. And this may actually turn out, as far as where the track of the heavier stuff is. The problem, there's a couple of problems. Well, there's a lot of problems here. First, it's the American model. But getting past that problem, which is a huge problem, it's experimental. And it's going to have to overcome some dry air up here in northeast Oklahoma. So these totals will be diminished already. So the model's not handling the dry air in place. Remember the dry air I showed you? That was in Oklahoma City. I didn't even show you northeast Oklahoma. It's even drier. So it takes longer to saturate the atmosphere. So you don't usually get as much totals as a result. The other issue is we're going to have to deal with, of course, melting. Both ground temperatures are warm, and we're right about 32 or 33 degrees on the surface temperature in the atmosphere, which means kind of like tonight, it takes a lot to overcome that. So even though we might get several inches that'll fall, the measurable amounts will be a lot less than that, which again means pretty much very limited travel impact if you're wondering. Okay, so we go back to 12 Zulu, which is about 6 o'clock this morning, 7 o'clock, when the models were running. We'll look at the American first because it's fun. And I say fun because it posts stupid stuff like this, right? 12 inches of snow. All right, well, that's not going to happen. So, sorry. We go to the Canadian model. It has pockets. There are some like 6, 7 inches on the worst case. It does pocket some fun stuff. But remember, it's been having trouble, though, so this is suspect. The European model's been the most consistent right now. Heavier stuff at the Panhandle, pockets of 2 to 3 kind of scattered throughout east to west across Oklahoma. And this is, again, another morning run. We'll show you the afternoon here in a minute. The UK Met didn't do a whole lot of snow because it keeps it too warm. It's the only model that pretty much had it mostly rain. Now, if that trend continues, that would be a bummer. But it's an outlier. I'm going with the colder solution for now. I don't like the idea of the warmer solutions. But that's me. All right. Okay, so let's try the 18-hour, the midday. We'll see which runs were here. So the European. Oh, get over here. Let's try this again. Okay, there we go. All right, so there's a midday American model. It liked the snow out. Now, by the way, the American model, when I used that for tonight's discussion, it was to show you the dynamics and the placement of things in the atmosphere. It usually does pretty bad at actual snowfall totals, so we don't want to pay too much attention to it in most cases, unless it matches the European. That's usually the rule of thumb. Okay, the American model, it backed off to its 11 inches. Look at that, in a 6-hour window, from the morning to the lunchtime run, it dropped its total by half. I mean, this is how ridiculous this model can be sometimes. All right, so now it's back down to, I don't know if this is ideal or not, but 5 to 6, whatever, inches of snow here in central Oklahoma. Okay, well, good for it. All right, let's go to the Canadian model. Remember, it had some trouble, and it still does, at least at the midday run. It had some higher amounts here to the south, pockets of 3 and 4, dusting up here to the northeast because of that dry air I mentioned, better stuff out west, but this is too far south. We're going to see what the 0Z run says here in a second. The European midday, it kept its east to west pockets of some good stuff. Here on the south side of town, Oklahoma City, for example, it's got 4 inches from Tuttle, Blanchard, Bridge Creek, let's see, up toward, say, Norman. Now, again, this is probably going to shift a little bit, and I'll show you a close-up view of that here in a minute. Okay, so now let's do, let's go 0Z. And there's only 2 models that I think are even in. Yeah, so the Canadian and the American. Or excuse me, the NAM. Okay, so the NAM came in. All of a sudden, remember, it didn't have much at all, hardly. And it just went bukus now. Because it's tapping in all those dynamics I showed you. I mean, it's waking up to the reality of what it's actually depicting on the output. Now it's going nuts up here in the pan at a foot of snow. So we'll have to see if this is a trend worth supporting when the European comes in. But now, look at the Canadian that just came in. Hot off the presses this evening. It went nuts. So it also, not only did it expand west to east, and less blotchiness, but more continuity. But it did keep the pockets of some heavier stuff in here. 3, 4, 5, 6 inches of snow, moved it northward here into central Oklahoma. So there's right over, Canadian County, for example, for fun, it has 5 inches. And it's got 3 inches or so here in Oklahoma City. So that's, again, another trend to watch. And this trend has been to come back north with it to match the others. So that's been the latest on that one. So here again, the close-up, let's see, of the 18Z run of the European. Now, this is when you kind of melt things. I don't want to disappoint you, so let's just not look at that. Let's just look at the, what may fall from the sky before it actually melts. That's the fun part of the forecast. Okay, so this is the midday GFS American model. Like I said, it's going to be kind of funny out here, so I'm not going to buy it. Its trend has been to stay on the north side, maybe a little bit more too far north, whereas the other ones are kind of in between. And here's the European model. So huge difference, right, between the two. Let's see. Let's go to the Icon. This is the German model. All right. Okay, why are you doing that? Let's just refresh this. So I want to see where it puts the track of the upper level low, because that's important for me. All right, so it seems to jump from there to there. So it's missing some data, hasn't come in yet. But that's okay. I can infer. All right, so we've got our low, and this just came in, so that's why this is still incomplete. So we got a low there, and our low is here. And then, so we're just going to connect the dots, right? So it looks like it just comes in almost a due eastward track. Okay. So for Oklahoma City, it's not the best track. It's a little north. You kind of want to be in the sweet spot of the upper level low, and that's not it. Now, sometimes on the backside, you can get some good snow. So we're kind of on the southern fringe of this. But let's see what it does with the precipitation, for example. And the reason why I look at the Icon model, because it actually does a pretty decent job sometimes when it comes to the snow line, the rain and snow line, and then amounts. So there you go. You got the mixture here right over central Oklahoma of rain and snow. So it does keep us in the snow. Let's see what it does with the totals, if it's even in yet. And it may not be. No, it hasn't even completed that. That's too bad. Okay, tell you what, we'll go back to its prior run just to show you what it kind of did with the totals, the significant totals, and it kept it. All right, so let me draw this for you. Because I know sometimes without any markers, it's hard to see where you're at. This line right here is I-40. All right, so you can see what it did. It pretty much kept it right along and north of I-40, feast or famine, from the south to the north. Now this is taking into account a lot of the melting and some other factors. So it's going to have a lot less in the total. So in other words, it's got like 3 inches, for example, in Stillwater. It just happened to pick that as a sweet spot. And also the Panhandle, which is up around 6 to, looks like 8 inches of snow. So the takeaway home on this is a little bit more of a northern track, which jives with the UK Met, which kind of drives with the trend that the other ones finally got a hold of. I think the American went a little too aggressive on the north track. The rest of them are pretty much right along I-40. And a little nudge north, a little nudge south puts the Oklahoma City Metro in quite a bit more snow or quite a bit of less snow. And to try to narrow that down this far away is impossible. But what you do is you watch for trends and you look at what the overall pattern is, and you know what can be there, right? You know the possibility, so the potential. All right, outside of that, temperatures. Well, they're going to be cold. So today, if you didn't get a chance, it was nice. Matter of fact, let me see if I've got a new update on this. Let me refresh this. We can just start with tomorrow and not even do today. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we've got mid-40s for Saturday after that cold start in the mid-20s. And then on Sunday, not too bad, honestly. Monday, misleading, right? That 42-degree reading that you see here would be midnight, early morning. Then as precipitation develops, the number will fall. So in other words, you'll have falling temperatures throughout the day as we get that cooling in the atmosphere. And then we'll be down to the 20s by Monday evening and Monday night as that snow system moves out. Okay, then after that, like we talked about, temperatures being the 40s for daytime highs. Overnight lows be hard freezes into the 20s. Some teens, the low-lying areas, all that kind of stuff, the valleys. So we're in kind of a cold spell. It's really not going to change much. Potential for some flurry activity on Wednesday with another system that moves through. Earlier there were some indications maybe, in this material on Saturday. Now these aren't huge systems at all. These are just minor little things going by at this point in the data. It's just still tiny signals. Of course, this one started out as a tiny signal and then it quickly ramped up. So we'll see if that happens with either one of those. But I'm just throwing that out there that we are in a kind of an unsettled pattern for the next week or so, which will allow us to get some fun stuff, which, in the form of the white stuff. All right, so I know that was a little long, but I want to give you all the information behind the scenes as to why you're hearing all the talk of the snow, how it happens, when it happens, what causes it, what to look for. And if you watch what I do enough, again, you pick up on stuff, and then you can actually, if you're a weather enthusiast, you can go to some of these model sites and look at some of the data I talk about. And you can become an armchair meteorologist and do your own prediction and wow your friends and family. I mean, just blow them away. I'll be like, you're better than the guys on TV. And you go, that's right. But you just don't have to tell them that I taught you. Just keep that between us, little secret. Okay, so that's the latest on that deal. Like I said, I'll be out of pocket over the weekend. I'm going to try to do a live probably on Sunday if I can. And then if I can. If not, also I got to do a blog. But again, with family, it's going to be kind of limited on the time frame. But I'll see what I can do because, obviously could be a big enough event. And when you're asking already for road conditions, my general answer to you at this point in time, obviously, is A, it's too early to tell. But B, let's say you get a few inches of snow during Monday afternoon. Worst case scenario, there's a brief hour or two, right, where the roads are slick. And everybody goes kamikaze. All right, and then after that hour, the ground heat from below melts it all back off. It's just wet roads. So it's usually the way that goes, especially in the first system. So just don't be one of those kamikaze, during that brief couple-hour window where it's coming down really heavy, which temporarily overcomes the heat from the road, et cetera, et cetera. But I wouldn't worry so much about that stuff. Just make sure you got good tread on your tires. You know what? There's some sales. Some of the tire shops got sales going on right now. So you might want to pick you up some, new ones if you want some tread. My tread's getting a little low. I think I'm down to 6 millimeters, which I don't like. I like to be above 6 millimeters for traction for snow and stuff, especially in the winter. So I'll have to get mine replaced here soon once I get past this weekend. Okay, let's see. Thanks again for chatting like crazy on YouTube. See you guys in there. And Jody checking in on you as well. She does, every time I do live, she does try to check in when she can. You guys on Twitter also, thanks for watching. And I wish, Twitter hadn't killed the interaction with the Periscope stuff, but we'll see what Elon Musk comes up with better tools for content creators like myself. And of course on Facebook, you guys are always very chatty. Let's see, Sydney, what about Fort Still snow? Like I said, way too early to get actual real measurements. I just want to show you tonight the span of how much you can have on variation in the output, and then tell you what the takeaway is, right? The take home. So your bottom line is, the track of the storm system. Okay, is it gonna be cold enough? Okay, and then we can look at some ideas as potential for snow. Usually with higher totals, you get a little bit of slightly drier atmosphere, where you might hear us talk about like a snow ratio of 25-1, for example, or 20-1, or 15-1. The average is 10-1, which is like 10 parts, liquid to 1. So in other words, let's see. So if I had 0.1, we'll call it 0.1 inches of liquid with rain. We'll call it rain. What that turns into with a 10-1 ratio, you multiply by that 10, and you get 1, as in 1 inch. So if it's 0.1 on the rain, it equals 1 inch on the snow. So if you get 0.2 on the rain output, or the QPF we call it, that's 2 inches of snow. So that's a 10-1 ratio. It looks like this system may come in with an 8-1, maybe a little bit lower than that in the early stages. So that means it's more of an equal deal. So if I get, 0.1 inches of rain, we'd call it, you're going to get 0.1 inches of snow. It's lame. That's a 1-to-1. You don't want that at all. So we're going to see where this goes with time to see how those snow ratios change. I'm hoping for at least an average of 10-1. That would give us, like I said, that's not too bad. That can give you an easy 2 inches of snow. But again, most of that's going to melt. But at least you got it. So it's way too early to see if we'll get any snowmen out of that. At least, someone who gets 4 to 6 inches, even if you melt half of that, that's enough for some snow, for building snowmen or having a snowball fight. So somebody out there probably gonna have some fun here in Oklahoma. And right now, Central Oklahoma is it's in the game. So we'll see what happens. Northwest Oklahoma's in the game. The Panhandle's out there. Southwest right now. Northeast, again, dry air may overcome your potential somewhat. Far southern or southeastern Oklahoma, unfortunately, I don't see you guys getting on much of the action. I think the track a little bit too far to the north for you. But right now, that's what I got for you. All right, that's all I could do for you. Then I got to get. So you guys have a great rest of your evening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and share this video. Comment as necessary, both good and bad. Give it to me straight. The more you interact, basically the bottom line is the more the algorithms reward both you and me with the content that you see. Let's see, make sure you tap the bell, subscribe. You guys on Facebook that aren't getting notified anymore, for example, go to YouTube, hit my weather page there. You can type in, like YouTube now has done new things where they go @ symbol. So just go @ AT's weather, and you should find it on there. Just type in my name or just AT's weather, you should find it. But anyway, the point being is if you subscribe there, you'll get notified, and then you can go back to Facebook and watch there, just wherever you want to watch. It doesn't bother to me. I'm trying to hit all the platforms that I can. So that's why I'm on 4 right now. That's why it's YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Facebook. And then I'll add more as we go through time. So that I can. We'll see what this computer can do. Okay, I'm out. You guys be good. Hope you enjoyed the little flakes of snow out there this evening. And we'll talk again later this weekend into early next week. All right, take care.